over the last year, I've really been focusing on building out my solo education business. And I've been using a content strategy to fuel the whole thing, which has brought it to multi-six figures now per year. And the strategy is surprisingly simple. And in this video, I want to share how you can use this strategy, which is very low effort. It's very real, organic, and authentic. And it doesn't take up too much time, and the results are really impressive. So there's two key components to the strategy. And more often than not, I see people using one or the other of these components. But the problem is that if you don't use both of them, then you kind of let a lot of people slip through the cracks. And that's going to become very apparent as I explain this. So the first component is the component of value. Now, value basically refers to information, education, step-by-steps, tips, tricks, all of these kinds of things. And this is so important that you have it as a pillar of your content, but just one pillar. And I'll get to what the second pillar is shortly. But the reason that value content is so important is because it actually adds value to people's lives. It helps them to get from point A to point B. And that's why I focus so heavily on that, because in the work that I do with people, I'm helping them get from a place where they don't want to be to a place that they do want to be. And so if my offer is taking people from point A to point B, which in my case it's taking people from having an audience or some knowledge or service-based business and using YouTube to drive more traffic and make more sales, then I need to be demonstrating what happens inside my programs outside in the YouTube realm. So all of the stuff that I help clients with, the step-by-steps, I show it all on YouTube. And in an ideal scenario, somebody who's willing and able can watch a video that is packed full of value and information, and they can take it and apply it to their own situation. This is what courses do as well, which I don't really see them as being the most useful thing for people, because it's kind of just like free YouTube videos. So while some people sell courses, I just make free YouTube videos. And then if someone does want to work with me, then instead of paying for a course, they just pay to talk to me and get my actual expertise directly related to their situation. So yeah, that's what the whole value video is about. So someone should be able to watch that and go ahead and implement it and get results. And to be honest, some of the most successful people that I've quote unquote worked with have actually just watched videos or gone through some of my free courses in my free community. I'll pop a link in the description for that. You can join. And it's pretty amazing to see people just taking free info and going ahead and building their business with it, or providing a lot of value to their own audiences. So that's what the pillar of value content is all about. It's about actually changing people's lives for free in video format. And then of course they have to go and do the thing. They have to implement it in their own business, in their own life, in order to get the transformation. And the reason that that's so powerful is because obviously that builds a lot of trust, and trust is essential when it comes to actually making sales and acquiring clients that you can work with. So that's the pillar of value. But value in and of itself is not enough to really scale and to attract the number of clients that you could. And that's where the second pillar comes in, which is the pillar of storytelling. And you'd actually be surprised of how impactful this is and the difference that it makes to your business. Because what we need to realize is that when people are buying from us as educators, creators, coaches, consultants, healers, whatever you call yourself, they're not just buying the transformation, but they're buying the companion that is going to take them on that transformational journey. And if you just provide value in videos, you miss out on that fundamental human part and the relatability factor. So the second pillar is story-based value videos, or maybe just a story-based video. So sometimes there's not actually any value intentionally put into the video, but it's more so about helping people learn a bit more about me, where I've come from, how I've gathered the knowledge that I have, and the things that I've done along the way. And what you'll find is people that have similar interests to you will really resonate with that type of content. And one of my oldest clients, funnily enough, 71 years old, came to me because he saw me talking about my experience of traveling. And that reminded him of when he was traveling, when he was around my age. And he said, yeah, I really just resonated with that. It brought me back to when I was moving about and meeting new people and all the experiences. And we had a great chat, and we decided that we would work together based on that conversation. But that conversation wouldn't have happened if it weren't for that pillar of story-based content. And that's just one example. I mean, I've been interested in all sorts of things: yoga, meditation, surfing, rock climbing, music, all these things that make up who I am as a person. And when you have that crossover, it's just way easier to welcome in a client because they like you on a fundamental human level. And you know, if you think back to your favorite teachers at school, it's probably not the person that was just providing the step-by-step of how to do this equation or that equation, but it was the way that they did it, the stories that they told to help you understand the information, and maybe the character that they were. Were they friendly? Were they interested in other things beyond the subjects that you were studying? And as a coach, a facilitator, a leader, you really need to remember that people buy from people, and you are a person, and you've got a lot of really cool insights to tell, yeah, sure, but you've also got a lot of stories that brought you to those insights. And when you bring that into the equation, you warm people up in ways that providing knowledge can't do. And it can be a little bit daunting because it's vulnerable to share your trials and tribulations. And my recommendation there would always to be sharing from your scars as opposed to your wounds. So to give an example, a scar is something that is literally healed. You know, you had a wound and then it scabbed over, and now it's all good, and you can continue life with that wisdom that was cultivated through that painful experience. And that's important because you'll be able to speak from a place of authority, which comes across, and that's going to resonate in a different way energetically. But also, you'll actually have embodied knowledge. And that is a lot different than theoretical knowledge. It's a lot different than theoretical value. And on the flip side of that, a wound would be something that maybe you haven't navigated yet. You're still in the process of healing. And that's a beautiful thing, and there's a time and a place for that, you know, with your own mentors, with your own coaches, friends, family, whatever. But it's not necessarily the time to speak about those things in your content. If your goal is to attract clients for your business, then you need to be speaking about the things that you do know and that you can help them with, as opposed to the things that you're currently learning. And of course, those things that you're currently unpacking, learning, and healing today, that will make for some banger content in the future. And that will upgrade everything that you do. But right now, we really need to be looking at what is healed. What have I done? What am I confident in, having been through it myself? And that's why it's so important to be mindful of the stories that you share, because if the story is still writing itself, then it's a bit loose, it's a bit flimsy, it's unfinished, and there's not the clarity there that you would have if speaking from a story that's already been written. The chapter has ended and we're on to a new one. I see a lot of people speaking from this wounded place without that clarity, and it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but if your goal is to attract people that are confident in you and confident in your ability to help them with their issue, then you really need to be speaking from the scarred place as opposed to the wounded place. Because the wounded place typically will build more of a rapport, but more of a friendship type thing. And that's beautiful if you want to do that. Just know that your monetization avenue is going to be more of a traditional approach of AdSense and sponsorships, also known as selling other people's products and services, which is totally fine if you want to do that. But if you want to be selling your own services, your own products, your own packages, what you need to be doing is really tapping into the well of expertise, knowledge, wisdom that you've cultivated through your scars. And don't forget that this is an ever-unfolding journey. So just because there's something on your mind right now that you're excited about but you quite haven't figured it out, doesn't mean you can't talk about it in the near future once you've gotten a little bit more comfortable with the scenario and moved through it. So when you take that pillar of value, which you can honestly embed a lot of your stories in there. You know, if you're talking about how you did XYZ, talk about where you were at before, talk about when you were wounded, and then talk about the process of healing that wound and arriving at a place where it was a scar that was healed and where you were able to move forward with more vitality and success as a result of that pain that you went through. Because ultimately the people that you're helping are people that currently have the pain that you used to have. And so your role is to have a look at their situation, relate it to your experience with your own situation or with your own clients that you work with, and then see if you can find a way to support them with their unique challenge, because it's different for everybody. And that's why this work is so cool, because we can see people that are a little bit further ahead of us, and then if they have an offer or an experience that we can invest in to help us to get to where they are, then that's totally possible with the internet and with YouTube and long form in particular. Because if you sit with someone for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, that's a long time to get to know them. And if you can put the right information, the right value, the right stories into that content, then you have a really simple but incredibly effective strategy that's going to help you to attract clients in a way that doesn't take too much time, because all you're doing is tapping into the stories you already have. You've already lived it. The knowledge you already have, you've already gathered it. And that's so powerful. And that's how you can build a business that evolves and grows with you, as opposed to one where you feel like you need to stagnate or copy paste the same thing over and over again. Your life is always changing. Your story is always changing. And it's just about bringing those different elements into the videos that you create. And that's going to resonate with the right person at the right time. And that's ultimately how you attract customers. If you want a full glimpse of my entire system that I've broken down step by step for how I built my business, how I help other clients implement this into their business, you can check out this video here. It'll just walk you through the whole thing.